Welcome back to Books on the Mic. We are on Chapter 12, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck. If you're new here,
Oh,
hit
yeah.
that subscribe button, and we do deep dives into some really thought-provoking books. And this chapter, I think, really gets into the heart of the matter, how our mindsets shape our achievements and really our whole outlook on life.
Absolutely. This chapter's a good one.
Yeah.
It really lays the groundwork for understanding this difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And Dweck argues that this distinction can be truly transformative, impacting everything from our personal relationships to our professional success.
Okay, so let's break this down for our listeners. We've all heard these phrases like, he's a natural athlete, or she was born to be a musician. Um, these statements reflect a fixed mindset, the belief that talent is innate and predetermined. You either have it
Right.
or you don't.
Yeah, those are some very common fixed mindset phrases. You see
Yeah.
it all the time. And what's interesting is that individuals with this fixed mindset, they tend to shy away from challenges. They fear that failure will expose their limitations and just confirm their belief that they just don't have the abilities.
Right. And Dweck illustrates this beautifully with the story of Loretta's. She's a young girl. She gets labeled as a low-ability student in kindergarten, and it's all based on just a single test. And tragically, this label really stuck with her throughout her schooling, and it really hindered her opportunities and ultimately her belief in her own potential.
It's a shame. And I think that Loretta's experience highlights the danger of labeling individuals based on a single snapshot in time. It really underscores the limitations of that fixed mindset, which views abilities as static. A growth mindset, on the other hand, embraces the idea that abilities can be cultivated through dedication and hard work and learning from our experiences.
It's not just Loretta's story, though. Dweck cites numerous examples of individuals who achieved greatness despite not being considered exceptional early on. We're talking Darwin Tolstoy photographer Cindy Sherman, golf legend Ben Hogan. None of these were instant successes. They all had to work, learn, and grow.
Yeah, and that's a crucial point. These examples really challenge the notion that success is solely determined by just innate talent. They demonstrate that potential can unfold over time
Yeah.
with persistent effort and a willingness to embrace challenge.
Right, and that brings us to another key aspect of the growth mindset, the importance of embracing challenges. Instead of viewing challenges as threats, individuals with a growth mindset see them as opportunities for learning and growth.
It's like how you frame it in your mind.
Yeah.
When faced with a challenge, someone with a fixed mindset might say, I'm not good at this. That statement reflects a belief in their inherent limitations. Someone with a growth mindset, however, might say, I'm not good at this yet. This subtle shift in language reveals a belief in their capacity to improve through effort and learning.
It's fascinating how a simple shift in perspective can have such a profound impact on our actions and ultimately our outcomes.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of feeling threatened by challenges, individuals with a growth mindset feel energized by them.
They view them as stepping stones on the path to mastery.
Yeah.
A great example of this is Michael Jordan. He wasn't just simply born a basketball superstar. His relentless dedication to practice and his unwavering belief in his ability to improve were key factors in his success.
It wasn't just mindless repetition for him, though, right? He was very strategic and focused in his practice. It wasn't about enduring the grind. It was about actively seeking improvement.
Oh, you raise a very insightful point. The growth mindset isn't about blindly pushing yourself to the point of burnout. It's about embracing a process of continuous learning and improvement, being deliberate in your efforts, and seeking out effective strategies for growth.
So it's not just about working hard, it's about working smart, constantly refining your approach and learning from your mistakes.
Precisely. And this brings us to another important distinction. In a fixed mindset, effort is often seen as a sign of weakness, a necessary evil to compensate for lack of talent. In a growth mindset, however, effort is reframed as the engine of progress, the driving force behind development and mastery.
It makes me think of Christopher Reeve,
Yeah.
the actor who played Superman.
Yeah.
After his accident, he didn't let paralysis define him. He embraced this rigorous exercise program, pushing his perceived limitations and just defying expectations.
Oh, Reeves' story is an incredible testament to the power of the growth mindset. He could have so easily succumbed to despair and given up. Instead, he chose to focus on what he could control and to relentlessly pursue improvement, redefining what was possible within his new reality. It's truly inspiring.
It's a stark contrast to the fixed mindset belief that our abilities are set in stone, isn't it? Reeves' story shows that even in the face of immense adversity, we have the power to choose how we respond. to embrace challenges and strive for growth.
And it's a powerful message for all of us. Regardless of our circumstances, it challenges us to examine our own beliefs about our capabilities, to
Yeah.
ask ourselves whether we're holding ourselves back with a fixed mindset, and to consider the transformative potential of embracing a growth mindset. What if, instead of viewing our limitations as insurmountable barriers, we view them as opportunities for learning and growth? What might we achieve if we embrace this mindset shift?
That is a question worth pondering. I mean, how often do we limit ourselves because we believe we're simply not good at something? Maybe we avoid taking on new challenges or give up too easily because we've internalized this fixed mindset belief that our abilities are predetermined.
And that's where the beauty of the growth mindset comes in. It empowers us to break free from these limiting beliefs and to approach challenges with a sense of curiosity, determination, and a belief in our capacity to learn and grow. Yeah, it's like we're constantly writing our own stories, and the mindset we adopt becomes the pen that shapes the narrative.
That is a great analogy.
Hmm.
But how do we actually shift our thinking from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset? I
Yeah.
mean, Dweck acknowledges that it's an active process, not just flipping a switch.
Right. It requires a conscious effort to recognize and challenge those fixed mindset thoughts. So, for example, when you encounter a challenge and that inner voice is like, I'm not good at this, try reframing it. What can I learn to improve? What strategies can I try?
So it's about catching those negative thoughts and replacing them with more empowering,
Hmm.
growth-oriented ones.
Exactly. It's about shifting from a mindset of judgment and limitation to a mindset of curiosity and possibility.
Dweck tells this kind of funny anecdote about a dude ranch vacation. She and her husband signed up for fly fishing lessons taught by this 80-year-old cowboy. Neither of them had any experience, but they embraced the challenge and ended up having a blast.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful example of how stepping outside our comfort zones, even later in life, can lead to unexpected joy and growth. It reinforces the idea that learning isn't limited to our younger years. We can continue to develop new skills and expand our horizons throughout our lives, as long as we maintain that growth mindset.
It also highlights the fact that learning can be enjoyable, not just a means to an end.
Absolutely. When we approach learning with a growth mindset, we're more likely to find the process itself rewarding, even when we encounter setbacks or challenges along the way.
Speaking of setbacks, Dweck emphasizes that understanding these growth mindset concepts is just the first step. There's a whole section in the book about turning knowledge into action because it requires consistent effort and a willingness to challenge our own thinking.
Right. It's not enough to just intellectually grasp the concept of a growth mindset. We need to actively practice it in our daily lives. This means seeking out challenges, embracing feedback, and persevering through difficulties.
Dweck also points out how fixed mindsets can negatively impact our relationships. It's easy to fall into the trap of judging and labeling our partners, assuming their flaws are fixed and unchangeable.
You know what's fascinating is how this mindset can turn minor disagreements into these major conflicts. Instead of viewing our partner's behavior as something that can be addressed and improved, we start assigning these negative labels, like selfish or inconsiderate.
Right. She shares a story about a couple, Brenda and Jack. Brenda tells Jack this long, boring story, and he gets annoyed. Brenda senses his annoyance and, in an attempt to be more amusing, launches into another long story.
Oh no. It's a classic example of how miscommunication and fixed mindset thinking can create that downward spiral. Both Brenda and Jack end up feeling frustrated and judged, leading to resentment and disharmony.
Right. It's like they're both stuck in this cycle of blame, assuming the worst about each other's intentions and their capacity for change.
Exactly. But imagine if they approached the situation with a growth mindset. Instead of attributing negative traits, they could have focused on understanding each other's needs and perspectives. Brenda could have recognized that maybe Jack wasn't in the mood for a long story and simply offered to chat later. Jack could have gently expressed that he was feeling tired and would love to hear her stories another time.
So it's about communication, empathy, and a belief that things can improve with effort and understanding.
Precisely. And this applies not just to romantic relationships, but to all our interpersonal connections. When we adopt a growth mindset, we approach our interactions with a greater sense of compassion, understanding, and a willingness to work through challenges together.
This reminds me of the concept of CEO disease that Dweck discusses. It's where leaders become so focused on maintaining a perfect image that they stifle creativity and growth within their organizations.
That's a great point. The problem with CEO disease is that it creates a culture of fear and insecurity. Employees become afraid to take risks or admit mistakes, hindering innovation and progress. Dweck highlights the example of Lee Iacocca, who initially led Chrysler to this remarkable turnaround, but later fell victim to this fixed mindset trap.
Yeah, it's interesting because Iacocca was initially seen as this visionary leader, someone who embraced challenges and fostered a culture of innovation. But as his success grew, so did his fear of failure. He became more concerned with protecting his image than with fostering continued growth.
Iacocca's story is a cautionary tale, reminding us that maintaining a growth mindset requires constant vigilance. Success can breed complacency, leading us to slip back into fixed mindset patterns of behavior. It's a continuous process of self-reflection and conscious effort.
It seems like this idea of a growth mindset isn't just relevant to individuals, but to teams and organizations as well. A company with a fixed mindset culture is likely to stagnate.
Absolutely. Leaders who embrace a growth mindset create environments where people feel safe to take risks, learn from their mistakes, and collaborate effectively. This leads to greater innovation, adaptability, and ultimately long-term success.
Dweck dives into research on how mindsets can impact learning and achievement, especially when it comes to how we praise children. She argues that praising intelligence can actually be counterproductive.
This was a surprising finding. It seems counterintuitive, but praising children for their intelligence can lead them to develop a fixed mindset. They become afraid of making mistakes because it threatens their smart label.
It makes sense when you think about it. If you're constantly told you're smart, you start to believe that your intelligence is this fixed trait, something you either have or don't have. And then when you face a challenge and struggle, it feels like a personal failure,
Yeah.
a blow to your identity.
Exactly. And the research shows that when kids with a fixed mindset hit a roadblock, their confidence and motivation plummet. They're more likely to give up, avoid challenging tasks, and even cheat to maintain their smart image.
Wow. So Dweck suggests that instead of praising intelligence, we should praise effort and the process of learning.
Yeah, praising effort encourages a growth mindset because it focuses on things children can control, their dedication, their strategies, their perseverance. It sends the message that learning is about hard work and continuous improvement, not about being innately gifted.
It's like teaching kids that their brains are muscles they can develop,
Yeah.
not trophies they need to protect.
That's a great analogy, and the research supports this approach. Kids who are praised for effort are more likely to embrace challenges, persist in the face of difficulty, and ultimately achieve higher levels of learning and performance.
It makes you wonder how much of our own potential we limit because of fixed mindset thinking. How often do we hold ourselves back because we believe we simply aren't capable of achieving certain things?
It's a powerful question, and one that each of us needs to grapple with. The growth mindset invites us to challenge our assumptions, to step outside our comfort zones, and to embrace the journey of continuous learning and improvement.
It really is a powerful concept. It makes you realize that, maybe a lot of us are living below our true potential simply because we haven't cultivated the right mindset.
And the exciting part is that it's never too late to shift our thinking. We're not stuck with the mindsets we developed in childhood.
So what are some practical steps we could take to cultivate a growth mindset?
Well, one of the most important things is to become aware of our self-talk. When we face a challenge or a setback, what kinds of thoughts are running through our minds? Are they fixed mindset thoughts like, I'm not good enough, or I'll never be able to do this?
And once we recognize those thoughts, how do we actually change them? I mean, it seems easier said than done.
It does take effort, but it's definitely possible. The key is to actively challenge those fixed mindset thoughts and replace them with more growth-oriented ones. So instead of saying, I'm not good enough, try saying, I'm still learning, or this is an opportunity to grow.
So it's about reframing those negative thoughts into positive challenges.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about denying our struggles or pretending that everything is easy. It's about acknowledging the difficulty and choosing to approach it with a growth mindset.
Dweck also emphasizes the importance of seeking out feedback and learning from our mistakes. It's easy to get defensive when we receive criticism, but it can be incredibly valuable if we view it as an opportunity for growth.
That's such a key point. Feedback, even if it's negative, can provide us with valuable information about our strengths and areas for improvement. It's up to us how we interpret and use that feedback.
It's like having a coach who can help us see our blind spots and guide us toward improvement, but instead of relying solely on external coaches, we can become our own internal coaches by developing that growth mindset.
And let's not forget the importance of perseverance. Developing a growth mindset isn't a destination, it's a journey. There will be times when you stumble, when you feel discouraged, and when you might even want to give up.
So what do we do when we hit those inevitable roadblocks? How do we keep that growth mindset from slipping away?
That's when it becomes crucial to remember that setbacks are a natural part of the learning process. Instead of viewing them as failures, see them as opportunities to learn, adjust, and come back stronger.
Dweck talks about how individuals with a growth mindset are more resilient. They're able to bounce back from setbacks more effectively because they don't see them as reflections of their worth or ability.
It's about shifting your perspective from why me to what can I learn from this?
It's a powerful reminder that we have more control over our thoughts and reactions than we often realize. We can choose to embrace challenges, learn from our mistakes, and cultivate a mindset that supports continuous growth.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a final thought-provoking question for our listeners to consider. What is one area in your life where you might be underestimating your own potential? What's one challenge you've been avoiding because of fixed mindset thinking?
It's a great question to reflect on. Maybe it's time to dust off that old guitar or sign up for that coding class or finally have that difficult conversation you've been putting off.
Remember, the beauty of the growth mindset is that it empowers us to constantly evolve and expand our horizons. There's always room for learning improvement and growth.
This deep dive into Chapter 12 of Mindset has been incredibly insightful. If you're feeling inspired, share your thoughts with us on social media. Tag Books on the Mic. We'd love to hear from you. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Books on the Mic for more deep dives into fascinating books. Until next time, happy reading.